Say thank you all so much for joining us here on your superstation Joy 99.7 FM for this special edition of the show. My name is Nathaniel Attoh, and I'm glad to welcome you to another Joy Sports Link here on Joy 99.7 FM, which is also streaming live on YouTube. Well, today we're coming off what has been a very smooth 69th anniversary parade at the forecourt of the State House of Ghana, with a very inspiring message coming from His Excellency, the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama. And of course, for us in sport, we're looking at the whole 69 years. I mean, I have not existed for 69 years, but I've seen a certain, percentage of the time. And the question we want to ask today on the Joy Sports Link is, what is your memory, your best memory in terms of achievements for Ghana, the closest shaves, and what cost us those close shaves at winning major silverware, and what we can do to get into a future of winning big laurels. It's as simple as that. And so you can send us your messages. Remember, 055-1111-997, 055-1111-997. And today, I'm just getting perspectives from people of various generations in the industry. And so I'm glad to have the presence of Mr. Carl Tuffour. Mr. Carl Tuffour, when you look at the history of multimedia, is a pioneer of this particular show here, which is the longest running sports show on this platform. He's also a sports historian, a PR specialist, a lecturer, and also a PR consultant, reaching us from his current base in the United States of America. Also, Nathaniel Attoh is a seasoned journalist and an editor. He also brings his perspective from his generation when it comes to Ghana's achievements, in sports internationally, in terms of the kinds of achievements we've made, the kind of impact it's brought us, and all of that. Also, I'm glad to welcome back to the show one man who's been such a... he's a prodigal son of the show. That's how I can describe him. And that's Eko Asma. Eko Asma is also a seasoned journalist with many years of practice at his fingertips. He is a pundit and also an author with a minimum of 3 big books on boxing in Ghana to his credit. So, gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us here on the show. I trust that we're going to have a wonderful time throwing back and looking at what, for each of us, constitutes the key big day in our sporting history, and which ones for you were the most painful close shaves. I would want to start it off by, talking about Senegal 1992 at the Africa Cup of Nations that was held in Senegal. I believe that it was one of our best Black Star squads never to have played at the World Cup, never to have won an AFCON title, and and all the accolades you could possibly give them. So I don't know which yours are, but I'll be sharing some messages as we go along. So let me begin with Mr. Carl Tuffour. He's in the U.S., as I said earlier. Let's look at his experiences and what are the key things, especially as we reflect on Ghana's 69th independence anniversary. Carl the Truth Tuffour, thank you so much for making the time to be with us today.
It's a privilege, actually, to be here. And can I just ask a quick question, please?
Please go ahead.
Link now on Fridays?
Well, it's Saturday. Yes. Sure.
Okay. I know it's a special program. For me, I think, let me put it this way, Nat. It's difficult to pick out a particular moment, but I'll go back to 1975 when I watched for the first time in my life at the stadium a match involving a Ghanaian team, and it was the national team, the Black Stars, against Nigeria. And I had been watching, we were out of the country and we came back, so I've been watching football, Ghana football on TV on and off, and I really wasn't into Ghana football. It was when the late Samuel Kaite of the Daily Graphic came and joined us in Form 2 in Motor School. That he really got me involved because at the time, I didn't have a team I supported in Ghana. The late Samuel Kaiti was a Hearts of Oak supporter, and he joined us, and we had this rivalry such that I decided that, okay, if Sami is going to support Hearts of Oak, then I would also support Kotoko. And that's what got my interest in Ghana football really going. So sometime in September, or was it August 75, I was privileged to go to the Accra Onijan Sports Stadium for the first time in my life. And I saw Ghana beating Nigeria by 3-0. I can never, ever forget that game because it was the Ghana-Nigeria Friendship Games. Before then, we had 2 legs. The first leg, Ghana had lost 2-1. Now, for us to see whether we could, beat the Nigerians. And by God's grace, it was a happy day for me because we won by 3-0. And I remember very well that Black Star team. I can never forget it. John Baker, Dan Opong, Enoka Sumedu, Awulekwe, Kukudadze, Isaac Ishan, not the non-nation that people later got to know. Yao Sam, Robert Hammond, Kwesi Wusu, oh God, I'm trying to remember. Joe Sam, thank you very much. And then Mohamed Polo. So that to me is the thing that really drags me in. But if you talk about the most, for me, monumental moment in Ghana sports, it was in December 1984 when Samuel Azuma Nelson won the featherweight title. More than when David Kotai won it. Because
before you go on, Carl, you raised a very interesting moment in our history. And I want to just quickly roll back before I bring in Daniel and Attoh. You talked about Ghana beating Nigeria by 3-0 at the Accra Stadium, during the Ghana-Nigeria Friendship Games. Now, Dr. Rafiu Ladipo, who used to be the president of the Nigeria Football Supporters Club, told me a story about how the fans, the official supporters club, and generally the fans of Nigeria, always got very, very paranoid anytime they heard the Ghana, Ghana, Ghana Oseye chant. And he specifically mentioned the 70s. For me, that brings so much pride and so much joy to note that something that the fans also used to do to spur on the Black Stars always got people to shake and all of that. And I think these are things that the current generation also need to learn about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, because, the irony of it, Nat, is that when you mention, is it Dr. Ladipo, okay?
Yes.
I have now, in my journalism career, I have become quite close to Shegun Odebami. And he corrected me about the way his name is pronounced.
Yeah, the mathematical Shegun Odebami.
Very good.
Yes.
And he also had that view. Ironically, he also had that view. So it means that around that time, there was probably something running within Nigerian football circles that, hey, the fans are, the Ghana fans are something else. But now, if you translate it to now, I think the Nigerian fans are on a new level. They send it to another level. They've learned from us, and in many ways, I think they have surpassed us.
I like that point. Well, we'll come back to the point about Berima Professor Azuma Zum Zum Nelson, also known as Samuel Azuma Nelson. Hold your thought there, Carl the Truth 24. Let me just take opening thoughts from Attoh, Asma, and Daniel Attoh. So Daniel is of the younger generation. He also has his best memories in terms of Ghana's highest heights in international sporting achievements. Daniel, thanks for joining us once again. Which of them is your biggest moment? Let's start with that.
Hi, Nat. Good afternoon, good day, and good day to Carl. It's been a while, Carl. It's good to hear your voice again. So, Nat, for me, and because I started my journalism career somewhere in 2008, 2009, the triumph of the the satellites in Egypt winning the Under-20 World Cup always stands out for me. It stands out because I got the opportunity to follow the team when they arrived in Ghana and did all the tour. I remember Salah's Tete and all the backstory about how Ghana won that tournament, and to be the first African country to have done that, and for me to be a part of the journey, not to be there with them, but when they arrived in Ghana and followed that story through and through, for me was very, very important. And also because I was just beginning my journalism career, it stayed with me and it stayed with me throughout. Yes, it may not be the senior national team, so-called, but at that level, to have no country to have done it before and to see the satellite do it, and with the opposition that they beat and all the backstory, for me was quite interesting.
Amazing stuff there. And that's why I bring in Echo Asma. Echo, let's also hear your bit of the story.
Very much. Shout out to Carl and Daniel and your very good self. Well, in football, I will start with the 1982 AFCON in Libya, because that was when Ghana last won. And that was the emergence on the scene of Abedi Pele. Since then, Ghana hasn't won the AFCON. They'll come close. Another time was 2015. Earlier on, you mentioned 1992. It was similar to the 2015, the penalty shootouts. It's very traumatic to even remember it. Anyway, subsequently, in football, we've won under 17 gold twice, one silver at under 20 and gold. And then one silver, one bronze at the Olympic Games. So we made strides, and then we marked territory at the quarterfinals at the 2010 World Cup. But as for boxing, you know already, 10 world champions in Ghana, the leading sport in Ghana. Olympic Games, we won five titles, 5 medals, to footballs 1, to judo's 1. Commonwealth, so many. So we made a lot of strides as a country, as a small country. And you know what's striking? Ghana did much better when the population was much, much smaller than now. If you check our achievements, they're all way back in the past. You know, as the population is increasing, we're getting more talent. Rather, it's not being matched by the quality of political leadership at the time. You realize we have more talent now, but we are experiencing diminishing returns in terms of hands-on leadership. When you talk about Kwame Nkrumah, he was hands-on. Kutuwe Champon, hands-on. Jerry John Rawlings, hands-on. President Kufuor helping us to get to our first World Cup, hands-on. So every time the presidents are hands-on in a particular discipline, we do very well. So that's something I wanted to throw it out there. And apart from football and boxing, really, and then, of course, hockey. Hockey went to the World Cup the first time in 1976. So these are some of our achievements as a young country. You know, we've done very well. It's just that we're unable to match those gigantic strides we made in the past. And in my estimation, it's because we don't have political leadership matching up to the achievements of their predecessors.
Amazing stuff there. And that will bring me back to Carl Tufor. Carl was walking us through the moments when Azuma Zum Zum Nelson became a world champion. And he says that he sees that as a bigger moment than the very first time when the legendary, DK Poison David Kote won the very, very first world title in any discipline at all. Well, Carl, walk us through those moments and what makes it extra special for you. And I'm talking about the Azuma Nelson feat of winning the world, the world title that you were talking about.
Nat, I beg of you, can I just digress a little bit? I didn't hear what Echo Asma said. I heard nothing. The whole thing went dead. So if the technical people can sort that one out, it would highly be appreciated, because I really wanted to know what Echo said. I heard Daniel very clearly. I hear you very clearly, but I didn't hear Echo.
Very well.
But to answer your question, at the time, I had personal doubts because of what happened 2 years earlier. People would talk about the champ took it on the short notice and whatnot. For me, that was neither here nor there. I had doubts because I thought he didn't have. The reason why I chose that day rather than DK's day, that would show that Ghanaians can also do what the world has been doing, was that was the beginning point of a major, for want of better words, resurgence in African boxing. Nelson held the flag for so long and was so undefeated that we cannot leave out that particular day in December against a hostile crowd, over 55,000 in Los Angeles, against a class champion. There was no doubt in my mind that was the turning point. And let's not mince words. The likes who came after him took inspiration from Nelson's over-the-odds victory. And that's why, for me, that was the key and most important moment in my journalism career, right through from the 70s going. I don't want to talk about the 60s because I was a toddler. I've read so much. I've read a lot. I've sought the views of the likes of Ken Bediako, the likes of Joe Agri. You worked under Joe. I've taught those people's views. But like whenever a debate comes as to who is the greatest footballer, I never ever get involved in it. All I say is that the greatest I have seen. And so in that same vein, much as Kote's own, we didn't see it live. Nelson's own we did as it was happening. And the greatness of the man from that time to this present has made me give him the title, the greatest African, note well, sports person. I didn't say boxer. I didn't say sportsman. I said sports person. The greatest African sports person this continent has produced. And so that, to me, was the turning point. Since that day, how many Ghanaians have gone on to win world titles?
9 more.
Many of them, and in a short space of time. But don't forget that and I'm not belittling Poison's achievements, they're phenomenal. Because Clotel Robertson had failed to get it, and all the others. But it took another 9 years from Poison winning that title for another Ghanaian to win it. And I think that is slightly more impactful than Kote's own. But no disrespect to him. Kote is the first, and nobody can ever take it away from him.
Well, if you just joined us, we're live here on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM as we go through the motions of our 69th Independence Anniversary celebration, reflecting on what you will remember as Ghana's highest moment when it comes to achievements. Which of them for you stands out as Ghana's highest moments of achievement? Also, take us back to the not-so-high moments when Ghana had to play second fiddle or finish runner-up in a major international competition which denied us some of it. So I'll be sharing some of the messages as we go along. Remember, it's 055-11-11997, 055-11-11997. And of course, my guests are Carl Tofor, reaching us from the United States of America, Kor Asma here in Ghana, and Daniel Attoh as well. Daniel, I want you to tell me a bit about this one that Carl has raised. For you, of the younger generation, what is the significance of an achievement made by an Azuma Nelson or a DK Poison at a time when, you were not born and you came to watch videos, you came to read books, and you got to meet him in person as well. What does that mean for you? Can you paint that picture for us?
So yes, you rightly mentioned that for some of us who are of the younger generation, I probably watched Azuma Nelson, but as a practicing journalist, interviewed him when he had finished his career. I watched a bit of his twilight years, which I appreciated. But obviously, that was when he was on the decline. I was almost done with his career. But to meet someone that humble and that hardworking, and when you meet Azuma Nelson, he's not the biggest person that you would find. He's a very, very petite human being. But to read and learn about the incredible things that he did, his benevolence and his humility, and every challenge that he had to surmount to become a world champion in multiple divisions is unbelievable. And when you meet him and his inkling to religion and the fact that with hard work, it doesn't matter where you have come from and that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve if you set your mind to it, was mind-blowing. This is a guy who, with very limited infrastructure and very limited exposure, managed to become the best of the sports that he decided that he's going to pursue. For me, as a Ghanaian, as an African, and someone who's growing up in a less developed continent or country, it tells you that it's not really always about the best of environment, and that if you put your shoulder to the wheel and you put all your effort into your craft, you can become the best there is. And the best thing is that even at the very top level, or when you reach the very high level, you can still be as humble as Azuma Nelson. And he's humble up until this day. I think is one of the most, if you like, um, um, the brand ambassador of Ghanaian sports, someone that you can exemplify if you are talking to a younger generation of what an athlete can be and should be. The guy has almost no drama to his entire career and post his career, and has surmounted so much. And his benevolence, I read the stories about how he will use his earnings or use his own, earnings from his boxing to buy rights for GBC or television stations to air his boxing bouts and all the things that he did. Still very humble guy. So for me, that's the lesson that you take, that it doesn't matter where you have come from, and that with hard work you can reach your destination and your goals.
Amazing stuff there indeed. And obviously, I'm sure that you'd always like to go to certain key days in all the videos you've watched of Azuma Nelson. Which of them is your favorite? All right, can we unmute Daniel a bit, please? Yes. All right, we're still here.
Am I clear now?
Yeah, very well. I can hear you. So kindly go ahead. All right, so would re-establish contact with Nathaniel Attoh as he takes us into that Azuma Nelson factor, which Carl Tufo has rightly talked about. Let's also take the thoughts of Attoh Asma. Attoh, you also have various elements. I remember, the 1982, Africa Cup of Nations triumph that, Carl talked about. That's the last one that Ghana won. Attoh, for you, what was the significance of that particular, achievement within the times and, within the context of Ghana's development at the time in 1982, when I remember President Rawlings was in charge as a military ruler. Attoh.
Yeah, for me, it was a great occasion. It was the second time I was jubilating over the Black Stars triumph at AFCON. First time being 1978. I watched it on TV. I was a little kid, but I enjoyed it big time. But the 82 triumph, I was in school. I was in Form 4. I skipped dinner to go watch the match at a geography lecturer's place. And it was worth it. with Ousmane stretching his lengthy frame to be saving the penalties here and there. It was great. For me, I will never forget it, that experience. Just unfortunate that we haven't been able to match it. But it was what the experience would last with me for as long as I live.
Now, you talk about... yes, Carl wants to add to this.
Just a quick one here.
Sure.
I have been doing some work on that 1982 Nations Cup, as it were. And to be brutally frank with you, Ken Bediako is the one that I've been touching because he tells us that the late Harry Thompson, Nianum Thompson, Eric Brakohiapa of GBC, Ben Egan of GBC, there was one guy from Ghana News Agency. You remember that the Liman administration had decided that they were not going to participate in it, and so we had pulled out. So when Rawlings and his gang came on, obviously they had been helped by the Libyans, so there was a reversal. And these 6-7 journalists, obviously no private media at the time, according to Ken, were picked and told, hey, you're going to cover the tournament. And for them, it was an experience they had never seen. And Ken corrected one fact by telling me, because there was this video circulating about the presentation of the trophy being given to Ghana in the hotel where they were staying. Ken told me point blank there was no truth in that. And so that record needs to be corrected. And that, yes, there was a little bit of crowd problems after the penalty defeat. But the trophy was presented at the stadium. And so that thing that has been going on around, people saying that, oh, this happened and Ghana went and the Libyans were angry because Ghana had had an agreement with Gaddafi to make sure that Libya won because, quote, Gaddafi had helped Rawlings in the coup of 35 December 1981. That was not, there was no truth whatsoever. What happened also was that within the camp itself, and many of you will not know, there was quite some level of dissension there because of what had happened in 1978 when the players were promised houses and never got those houses, and some of them ended up getting, I don't know what it was, whether it was cattle or some money. And so there was some dissension, particularly led by the late Opoku, who made it known that, hey, and you know, he was a typical tree boy, and he says it as it is. Opoku was one of the most open, and when I say open-ended, I mean he speaks his mind. When they went and asked about how much they were going to earn, they were told that you go and play, and when you come back, we'll settle that. And according to Ken, Opoku told them point blank, hey, and yes, 1978, that is literally saying that. It's not like that. In 1978, they got nothing when they were promised heaven and earth. So they wanted to know what. And so he was speaking up then. And, you know, he had been a survivor from 1978 and 80 as well as 82. So clearly, I think maybe we need to start tapping into the likes of Ken Bediako, the likes of Joe Agri, those who are alive, or anybody else, get them and let's put the records down and make them straight. But make no mistake about 1982. That was the beginning, quotation marks, of the end of Ghana's dominance as a power on the African continent.
Wow, amazing. Beginning of the end. Those are very realistic thoughts that always hit us. Daniel, you probably have seen one or two moments where Ghana lost out. Now, you talk about the start of your career where Andre Ayew and his teammates won Ghana and Africa's first under-20 FIFA World Cup title. And then we went into the year 2010 and had to lose to Egypt to lose to Egypt for them to get another AFCON title while we kept the search on.
And let me just answer the earlier question you asked me about Azumah Nelson, because I had the opportunity to interview him. And I think for him, one of his best bouts would be the Jeff Fenech fight, the second one, when all the doubts had crept in, and he asked for a rematch. That's Jeff Fenech, and the rematch happened in Melbourne, and he was able to win. And he always say that he didn't mind if that bout happened in the bedroom of Jeff Fenech. He was always going to beat him. So for us, the younger generation, that would always stand out if you look at the videos of Azumah Nelson. But back to your substantive question about some near misses. Yes, 2010 will stand out. And it stands out because it also follows from the fact that that team that lost out was a team that had not been given any chance to even reach the finals. I remember it was Milovan Rajvac who was the coach at the time. I think it was at the time that we had started the Serbian experimentation. And we had gone into that tournament with a lot of the players from the 2009 squad, the players that had won the Under-20 World Cup. And a lot of the big names were missing. I remember ACN had to fly in and then got injured and had to go back. There wasn't a lot of experienced players. I think Stephen Appiah missed out on that tournament. Lai Kingston missed out on that tournament, if my memory serves me right. I remember Samoa Jan Kojo Asamoah, Opoku Ajiman, and the likes. Very youthful squad that went into the tournament, but managed, for some reason, did a one-goal project and managed to limp into the finals. Played some very good football. The goals were not flowing, but a very compact and a very defensive side will score one goal and you cannot penetrate that squad. And it was heartbreaking to see that. Even though I was not at that tournament myself, I had the displeasure of witnessing the 2015 one. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Oh, my goodness.
Where I was there at the stadium in Gabon, where a marathon penalty shootout took place. And that night was such a long night for the Ghanaian journalists in the media center and in the press center. Look, I stayed at the stadium until the lights at the stadium went off. Literally an empty stadium. You know, as a journalist, your country starts the penalty shootout. You are 2-0 up. You have already started writing a story about how your country has been able to end a long trophy drought. All of that introduction went out of the window at the end of the game because we had lost that game. I saw Andre Ayew crying, and I was so hurt because it was around that time that Asamoah Gyan had told himself that he was not going to take a penalty kick for Ghana because of whatever had happened 2 tournaments or a tournament before. And so that penalty shootout, Asamoah Gyan was there, but didn't take the penalty shootout. I remember Andre Ayew was there, but decided to go behind the queue. I mean, and I'm not apportioning any blame, but I'm just telling you, being there, how it felt. And even though I was a professional and I had to act like a professional, the pain of being a Ghanaian and seeing us lose another AFCON title was so unbearable.
And you mentioned, this whole penalty shootout thing, and to think that it had worked for the younger generation led by Andre Ayew, and then a few years down the line, the same bug bites us again.
Exactly, and it wasn't the first time. Remember, in South Africa in 2013, there was an AFCON in 2012. There was an AFCON in 2013 in South Africa against Burkina Faso, Aristide Banzi and his team.
That one.
That was the semi-finals that we lost as well. Come so close. And don't forget, in 2008, when we hosted it in Ghana, a similar thing happened. So, it was so painful. And we always talk about the penalty cares and the fact that we thought after 2010 we had negotiated that and everything was in the clear and we're going to do it. The World Cup, a similar thing happened. When Asamoah Gyan got the chance to, take us into the semi-finals, and that didn't happen. And in the penalty shootout, we managed to lose that as well. So in terms of penalty shootout and the heartaches and the near misses that have accompanied them, I think for us, the recent generation, we've seen too many of those, actually.
All right, Carl wanted to add. Carl, yes, go ahead.
Now, I may have to leave, but I need to put this in perspective in terms of the
very well
penalty shootout. Yeah, the penalty shootout situation. And don't forget that it was back in 1992 that drama really started. Ivory Coast again, African Nations Cup final. Till this day, I've always maintained that had Abedi Pele played in that final, we wouldn't have got to the penalties. We'd have won the game. But that was also something that leaves an indelible mark in my mind. Here we are, dominating the game, and I really mean the word dominating. We did dominate that game. For guys who can't remember, go back, watch the video. I watched it time and time again, and still couldn't find a way through. It is what sometimes the English journalists say, you need that genius to have a flash of brilliance. And that's where we missed Abedi Pele at the time. Granted that we had super defenders, we had great attackers. There was that magic that you see when you have Lionel Messi going through 15 people. Or for the older generation and for my own and Echo's own, the likes of Pele and Maradona. Get that business done. That's where we missed it. But the penalty heartache, 1992 was the start. And it's been absolutely horrendous. And that's why I always say, no disrespect here, we are the England of Africa and not Brazil of Africa, because we tend to lose penalty shootouts.
Wow. Well, Carl, and as you take leave of us to attend to other things, this bug of the penalty shootout, how do we get ourselves out of it? I'm wondering, from where you sit.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what we've done, what they do, whether the players, because at the end of the day, it ain't going to be the coaches. When you have penalty shootout losses, for me, you don't blame the coaches. It boils down now to the player. It's each man for himself, coach, and God for us all. You can practice your penalty shootout. England say they've done it for years. Yet when it comes, the players freeze. Because maybe the history comes rolling back. People say, okay, go get psychologists, get it out of them. Still, it's happening. There's a saying in European football that when it comes to those sort of things, you can trust the Germans. And you take a look at their track record, they have it. When it comes to Africa and Ghana, I just don't know why we cannot. It's one, like Daniel said, under 20. But more often than not, and Daniel narrated it, when it gets to penalty shootout, your heart is in your mouth. When you translate it into Ghana football itself, Kotoko has that record. Daniel spoke about scoring the first 2 goals in 2015 through the penalty shootout and yet losing. Daniel, 1993, Kumasi Asante Kotoko against Zamalek. Goalless in Kumasi, goalless in Egypt. Kotoko got the first 2 goals. Zamalek threw their first 2 away, and Kotoko lost. African Cup final. I leave it there.
Thank you very much, Carlton, for having to attend to a few other things there. We're very grateful to you for the time and bringing us a bit of a historical perspective to it. Talk about our clubs. I mean, for anybody of the new generation, obviously the triumph of Accra Hearts in the early 2000s is what does it at the CAF Champions League level. But Eko, can you take us back a little bit to when Asante Kotoko was dominating, on the continent at the CAF level?
Well, I think it was
5-year plan put in place by the administrators at Kotoko at the time. Bewa and Alenjima. Well, he had some deep pockets to count on, and the strategy at the time was to be able to get it within 3 years. It didn't happen. I remember Kotoko assembling a lot of the stars. Some of their bench players could even start for some of the teams. They would get any and every top player in the country at the time, which was contrary. It was like the Real Madrid approach, contrary to the Hearts approach, where they would breed their players from the Auroras, even though Kotoko also had a notch staff. But that was the administration style, and it did well. From 81, they started approaching the medal zone, I would say, from 81. Now, featuring the umpires, the poker players, and all that. Then they invigorated the defense, bringing Carr and all that. Well, Carr, umpire had to go to house poker and all that. But the strategy, like I was saying, was like a 5-year plan. Every year, Kotoko went a step further than the previous year's campaign. And there was stability. That's what I want to emphasize. There was stability at the administration side. There wasn't every year shift-changing administrators. They were there for a long while, even though they had issues with Opoko Frie in 82. But administratively, there was sound management. There was not a high turnover of players. And those players were all the top players in the country. They were not signing players from third division, etc., as is the norm now. So the team was sound, and of course, it wasn't like now when everybody be thinking about the professionals. But because of sound management, the team was intact. They would make a few additions here and there every season, and they stayed on course, and they won. They made good recruitments, bringing Takwa Polo, talking about Obokunti, and then Bannerman. They brought everybody. Mensah, Yaya Kasum. A lot of the top players from all the clubs were assembled because they had deep pockets. But more importantly, sound management. Sound management. Because the team kept winning and they kept putting up great performances, the stadium was always full. It was filled to capacity. So long as the performances are great, the fans will troop to the stands. The performances brought the fans to the stands, even before they would even go to Africa. So they always were encouraged. The management was encouraged to continue to invest. And it did happen finally in 83. So I would say Meshia was not so keen on changing the administrators every now and then. They had free reign for a long time, and in my estimation, that helped Kotoko. And then at the time, the style was not to go get players from the lower divisions. No, it was about getting any top player in the country, whatever the amount. And of course, the registration of players at the time was different. But of course, we see in Europe, the Real Madrid are able to get whichever player they want. Likewise, the Man City of this world. So that was the case as is now in Europe. That was the case with Kotoko. They had deep pockets. They could virtually get every player they wanted, and they had sound management. That, in my estimation, helped Kotoko get to the title in 1983.
Amazing. And like you said, the times were different. There was much more patience. Now, you do not see the fans have that much patience for administrators who come in and handle the club.
Well, it's never changed with the supporters. They always want great performances. And that was the case at the time. They had the best players. Of course, the other teams also had very good players. Olympics had very good players, Hearts had very good players and all that. But Kotoko had depth on the bench. They had a lot of players on the bench who could fill in the course of the season in event of injury or suspension and all that. So Kotoko is used to, the Kotoko fan base is used to winning and used to great performances. So they're not going to patronize games where they go to the players, to the field, and they just see any player sprinkling stardust over the field. No, it's always been the case. They have never been patient with substandard, subpar performances. No, it's always used to great performances. It's unlike Hearts when they have the patience to build. If you give them time, they will build a Winston team, conquer Ghana League many times over, and win on the African continent.
Okay, so let me do some messages now. There are a few messages here. This one is from Shirley-Ann. Shirley-Ann says, well, Nathaniel, I am of Daniel Attoh's generation from what he says, and I remember very well that we had dinner on that evening when Ghana played against Brazil in the Under-20 FIFA World Cup. It was such a great moment. We ended up partying till the next day at dawn at 2 a.m. All right, thank you very much, Shirley-Ann. Very interesting message sent here. Now, another one from Marlon. Marlon says, good afternoon, Nat. Thank you for this very interesting topic. There are so many moments in history, but from my inclination as an Asante Kotoko fan, I would always want to refer to the triumphs in the CAF Champions League. Those were glory days. I was not around at the time. I was not born. However, I came and was inspired by that to follow the club. And of course, at least I've been able to see some league triumphs on the part of Asante Kotoko. It is such a great wish on my part that Kotoko can return to those glory days and get back to the CAF Champions League, play there and dominate like the Al Ahlis and the Esperance de Tunis and also the Mamelodi Sundowns of this current generation. All right, thank you very much, Marlon, for that one. Ibrahim has sent a message. He says that I want Eko Asma to talk about Aikwote's loss to Oscar de la Hoya. That was also such a big point of pain for us. It was such a close scratch. And while Aikwote talks about how he won that bout, I also feel that he shouldn't have let his guard down in the 11th round. Otherwise, we would have been telling a different story. However, I am glad that Oscar de la Hoya on his own has admitted that it was that fight against Aikwote that sent him into retirement. Ibrahim, thank you very much for that message. There's another one here from Daniel. Daniel says, well, I am a Phobian fan. I'm a die-in-the-wool Phobian fan. My whole family is Accra Hartsvok, and we are the Continental Club Masters. We won the Virgin Cup, and we also won the Champions League. We bless the memory of Sir Cecil Jones Atukwefiu, who is one of the greatest coaches in Ghana's football history. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Dan, for that message. There's another one here from Papa. Papa talks about very recent times. He talks about how Ghana's sprint quartet won the men's 4x100 meters title at the African Games in the men's sprints 4x100 meters events. Okay, very, very interesting thoughts coming in there. Once there's been a mention of this Aikwote versus De La Hoya bout, maybe we'd have to talk about it. You are a specialist when it comes to the coverage of Aikwote's bouts, together with the legendary Joe Agri.
Yeah, well, I think it was coming. You know, I had sort of retired from the sport at the time the De La Hoya fight came up, if you remember. He had been inactive for a long while, and he was actually approaching retirement. But, you know, the Spanish fans, being the bedrock of boxing, demanded Aikwote De La Hoya fight. I had the question about him leaving it late to De La Hoya. That had been coming, even in the 97 fight that I covered with versus Jose Luis Lopez. I dominated for a greater part of the fight, but he couldn't close out the show. So they watched you over a while and they realized this is where we can get you. They knew he couldn't close out the show. So that's what affected Aikwote. And you know, typically in our fights, Nat, you know very well, there are the championship rounds from 10, 11, 12. If you don't dominate, really, in a close fight, you're not going to get it. So I wasn't surprised they didn't get it, especially going up against the crowd favorite, the industry favorite, De La Hoya. There was no way Ike was going to win that fight on the scorecard if he didn't knock out De La Hoya. It was never going to happen.
Do you think, Attoh, that Ikwate gave De La Hoya maybe a little too much respect? Do you think, on hindsight, do you think Ikwate gave De La Hoya too much respect?
He said so himself, that he did give him too much respect. However, on the strength of their own abilities and performances, right? Remember, De La Hoya dropped Ike first, and Ike dropped him almost immediately.
Yeah.
After that, then you couldn't talk about any more respect. And that was early in the fight, like the 7th round or so. So what about the last 5 rounds? As I indicated earlier, I tended to fade towards the end of his career. He tended to fade in the championship rounds, unlike when he first started. I remember exactly what happened in the Espana fight. He managed the fight, the rounds in between, and exploded in the championship rounds. That was typical Ikwate. He would explode from the 9th round on, it was on. But towards the end of his career, he was fading in the championship round. So he said so himself that he gave him too much respect. So I will have to give it to him that he did so. But after they both dropped each other, the respect was out of the window. And then it will come to your repertoire and your conditioning. And towards that end of his career, he was fading. Like I said, even way back in 97, he will be fading towards the championship round, the 10th, 11th rounds. And in a fight against De La Hoya, if you fade, you're never going to get it. Even if you had won the first 9 rounds, in the estimation of the judges, if you are losing 9, 10, 11, 12, you're not going to get it. So that's what happened. There was no way he was going to win it unless he was going to knock him out. And at the time, I didn't have the kind of flourish. He still had the power, but he couldn't put together the kind of flourish like he did with Espana. 14 unanswered punches. You know, I didn't have it then. So, being that it was that close and De La Hoya was pressing, there was no way I was going to get it.
Interesting thoughts there. Let me read some more messages here. Frederick has sent this one, and it reads, I always want to celebrate the likes of Ignatius Geyser for going to dominate at the World Athletics Championships, winning their medals in the long jump. Okay, thank you very much for that message, Frederick. Godwin Addo in Achimota. Godwin Addo says, I'm following the conversations very keenly, and it's very interesting thoughts that have been brought up so far. I think that it's important to always win laurels because it does something to the psyche of the nation. Look at what the youngsters in 2009 were able to do, and look at what it did for that generation of people. I'm imagining the same thing for each generation, either in the 60s or 70s or even 80s, when Ghana won major international laurels in various sporting disciplines. Now that the sports fund has been put into operation, it's my hope that we can realign the way we organize our sports and make sure that we are also counted when, the big names mount the podiums and stand up for honor. Okay, very, very interesting thoughts there indeed. Daniel, these are varied thoughts that are coming in, but let me remain a bit on the Ikwate factor. Some people talk about how they feel he's one of our craftiest boxers you could ever find, and how it was such a painful loss because that could have also redefined, aside Azuma Nelson's achievements, the way the world viewed boxers from Ghana and where they placed our brand.
That is correct. I mean, look, even though that defeat was very painful, let it not be said anywhere that Aikote didn't distinguish himself. He really distinguished himself. I don't think that going into the bout, many people had given him a chance, but for him to go toe-to-toe with De La Hoya was very, very impressive. Yes, could he have won it? I remember that bout very well. He could have won it. And I share in the sentiments that a lot of us have, that maybe he gave De La Hoya too much respect, and that if he really had gone for it, he could have won that bout. It's very reminiscent of what happened to Joshua Clottey in the bout against Manny Pacquiao, which I also believe that Joshua Clottey could have won that bout. So as much as we talk about near misses in our football space, in other sporting disciplines, in boxing as well, we've had a few close shaves. We could have redefined how the world will see boxers from Ghana. That said, the likes of Azuma Nelson, the likes of Joshua Clottey in other bouts, the likes of Agbeko in other bouts have shown enough to tell the world that boxers from Ghana ought to be taken seriously. Isaac Dogbe himself, not to mention others. But yes, in the De La Hoya bout, I believe that Aikote could have done a lot. You know, I schooled, my primary education was at Lamtemel. So I remember where
Oh, you
his
mean Great
building was.
Lamte Mills Institute?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, he has a building very close to the Zongo Junction if you are going to Lamtemel. So he's somebody we could identify it at a very young age. That's I caught his building. And I remember with his gold tooth and all of that. These are people who shape not just the sport, but even our fashion and how we view our athletes. So yes, there have been some missed opportunities, but look, these guys have done tremendously well for our sport, for our country. They become worthy ambassadors when it mattered the most. And they have done their best because of where they've come from, the infrastructure they have had to deal with. These are people who don't have the best of facilities to train with, but to go toe-to-toe with people who have had the opportunity to train with the best of teams. Look, boxing, like every other discipline, comes with an entire entourage. These are boxers who sometimes go to bouts without their coaches getting a visa and go there and deliver. So yes, these are people who may have had a few missed opportunities, but on the whole, these people have represented our country so well and ought to be celebrated while they are alive.
Amazing stuff there. Which one do you remember? Which generation do you belong to? And which of Ghana's international achievements made the best impression on you? Which of them also do you feel we should have won at all costs but missed by a close shave? We've mentioned quite a number of them. Bring in your thoughts as well and let us know where you also stand regarding, you know, what you think with some of the close shaves that we had. I had the opportunity of watching the Senegal 92 penalty shootout with my late father, Dr. Victor Attoh. I remember very well. It was something else, and the nervy moments. My palms were watery. I remember very well. Goalkeeper Edward Ansan. I think goalkeeper Edward Ansan saved one of those penalties, and then goalkeeper Alain Guamen. Oh my goodness, goalkeeper Alain Guamen. Echo, you remember goalkeeper Alain Guamen, right?
Oh yeah, man. I don't want to remember his name, man. It's just traumatic remembering his name. He was very good. He was very, very good.
Yeah.
But not good for Ghana at all, though.
Very well. But you know, referring to what Carl said earlier about this jinx around the penalty shootout, he says that he honestly doesn't know what it is. Do you? And I'll take this round the table. Do you think there could be a realistic solution? Because some also argue that no matter how much you practice, it really boils down to luck. Do you follow along the lines of that argument and that standpoint?
No, I wouldn't say luck. I'll stick with the practice. Because remember that under 20 team won on penalties at the world stage. There's no bigger pressure on any athlete than at the World Cup final. And Ghana won on penalties under 20. So it was practice. They believed it. They did it so many times it became second hand. I think it's still the practice. It's not just the luck. You have to wait for it. You're not going to tell me Ajimamedu put the ball in by luck. No. They did really work hard on it, expecting it to go to the wire, and they did deliver. So I wouldn't say it's luck. You work hard at it, and then that is your luck. When you work hard at anything, you will break through. So that's what happened for that under-20 team. So we have to place emphasis on practicing. But you see, there are specialists in the penalty shootout. There are specialists who teach. There are some who will hit the ball based on intelligence report because the keeper will go this way or that way. You know, now it's become very scientific. With even some of the goalies knowing where each player at whatever club kicks it to and all that. It's become very scientific. But if you study some keepers, if the ball is anywhere on the ground or in mid, they will save the ball. Or there are some keepers that are very good if you hit it to the angles. They will still be able to tip them. But typically, keepers go down. Every time you try to hit the ball, they will go down. So you aim at the angles. If you are not lucky, it will go over the bar. But if you practice it all the time, it will go in. So I was thinking with practice. If they do it so often and they are well-versed in it, they are not going to shake. I will still go back to the under-20 triumph over Brazil, the penalty shootout. That was a pressure cooker. Typically, Ghanaian teams will fold under that kind of pressure. But they did surpass the opposition. So I'll put it down to practice, and emphasizing expertise in spot kicks, not just penalty kicks. You know, our game has not been measured by free kicks and corner kicks and penalties. That's an area where we can add to. Even I know we're going to the World Cup. We can think about that. Free kicks, corner kicks, and I realized that in the World Cup qualifiers, the Black Stars were doing well converting corner kicks. It's a good sign. We can add the free kicks to it and then specialize on the penalty kicks. I think that's it. It's not just luck. The luck is produced by your staff. You have to keep working hard at it, and you break through.
Amazing. Let me do some messages here. There's this one from Wilfred Tete. Wilfred Tete says, Nat, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this show. I've been enjoying all of those submissions so far. How come nobody has pointed on the triumphant qualification, that's how he puts it, the triumphant qualification to the 2006 FIFA World Cup by Captain Stephen Appiah, the inspirational captain, and his teammates led
I think I mentioned it, but I gave the credit to President Kufuor.
Very well. So maybe we'll have to revisit those moments as well. Thank you very much, Wilfred Tete. There's another one from Charles Ofosu Ampong. Charles Ofosu Ampong says, I just want to see another 1982 in our football history. The time is flying by, and now we've gone into 40 years plus of not winning the Africa Cup of Nations. I sometimes look back, and it's so painful. And I also sometimes observe our friends from Côte d'Ivoire who now are catching up with us gradually when it comes to the trophy count. When? Oh, when? Okay. Thank you very much, Charles Ofosu Ampong, for that message as well. All right, so Daniel, let's go back to 2006. Coach Mariano Barreto came in, and then, after Mariano Barreto came in, we saw, Coach Ratomir Dudkovic come in, and we made it to the second round. Daniel, let's go back to that experience of qualifying for the first time for the World Cup, something we had tried on several occasions with the greats like Abedi Pele, the Tony Yeboahs, and all. Daniel?
I will see. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable that after so many misses, we finally were at the World Cup. But you see, we need to also put it in context. It was also at the time where FIFA had expanded a representation for Africa. And a lot of us believe that if that expansion had happened earlier, maybe Ghana would have qualified to the World Cup earlier. Before then, we had only one representation at the World Cup. I mean, for a continent that big, to have only one representation or two representatives at the World Cup was, for me, an injustice. But the moment that expansion happened, you saw the Black Stars qualify. That's not to take away the enormous contribution of government, especially in our Black Stars and our national team. And President Kufuor, like Eko mentioned, was instrumental in that. even though today we look back and maybe feel that it also created a big problem for us because it was the beginning of us giving out a lot of fat bonuses to the Black Stars. We threw everything at it to qualify. And for a lot of Ghanaians, it didn't matter how much we spent as long as we had qualified, because this was an elusive tournament we wanted to qualify. But I remember it was around that time that we were paying $10,000, $5,000 winning bonus to these players to qualify. I mean, after a while, this became a problem, and now it's still a conversation that is unsettled yet. But the qualification itself was defining, and these guys went to the tournament and delivered on the world stage. I mean, by far, some of our greatest scores that we've had. I mean, that squad, that quartet of Stephen Appiah, of Sule Muntari. Unfortunately, this guy couldn't go. Like Kingston couldn't go to that tournament, which is another story altogether. But that team was a very good team with the defense of John Mensah, of Samuel Kufuor, Papo, and the likes. Unbelievable talent. And what it did for this country, even when they got out in the second round, when they came home, if you look at the reception that they got for a team that didn't qualify beyond the second round, it showed you that we appreciated them. And even when they lost to a better Brazilian side, they had given everything. Michael Essien and co. And some of us believe that even if Michael Essien had played in that second round game because he was suspended, maybe he would have qualified to that competition. And Ghanaians were even calling for us to be pitched against Brazil, even though eventually we got Brazil. But that's the level of confidence we had in the team, that any country we could go toe to toe with. And indeed, even though we lost out to Brazil in the second round, we gave a very good account of ourselves, and we expected to build on that. That didn't happen. Subsequently, 2010 was a good year. We built on it, but 2014 was a disaster, as you may know. And the painful aspect of it is that, I mean, after how many 4 or 5 appearances, there's nothing tangible to say this is what we got out of the World Cup by participating all these years. But the first qualification to the World Cup, unbelievable.
Amazing. The first qualification to the World Cup. Echo, were you in Ghana at the time when, because you switched bases to the US at a certain point? Were you in Ghana when Ghana qualified for the FIFA World Cup for the first time?
No. I was in the States, but I had a great time with most of the African students at the University of Massachusetts were reaching out to me to congratulate me, especially the Cameroonian students.
Okay, but let's talk about that game against the US, because you were in there. So here was you.
I had a hard time at work because most of my colleagues were like, "What, Ghana? Where's Ghana? This small country? Man, and you are here. We are taking care of you here, and your country beat us." Oh, they gave me a hard time. But it was an opportunity for them to learn. Most of our people to learn more about Africa. These things do help Ghana in a long way. We get a great mileage because most of them don't know Ghana, they know Guyana. So if something big like that happens and Ghana beats the almighty US, then suddenly they want to know about Ghana. Of course, now a lot more know about Ghana. But it was a great time for me. I was so happy. Look, I wrote a lengthy article that got published in the Graphics World at the time. I was so happy. I couldn't sleep for about 2 days. I had to finish the article before the excitement would leave my system. So I wasn't here. Thank you all who put in your effort for Ghana to qualify then. But I enjoyed it big time.
Great stuff. All right, gentlemen, we're going to get to wrap up this part of the conversation. And then on the second part of the show, we're going to bring back a conversation I had with the legendary Magnus Rex Dankwa, a seasoned international sports consultant who has played very big roles in a major part of the most successful era of our sporting history in this country. But I would like to come to you for final comments on how we can move on from here. The conversations can never be enough. But we need to start from somewhere. So for you, I mean, if you pick 1 or 2 of the near misses that we had, what would you assign as the remedy, or what can help to remedy whatever it was, just in case you have maybe a backstory or two. Let me begin with you again, Attoh. So you bring your final comments on that in terms of how we can get it right when we get these kinds of opportunities.
1992.
Yes.
Senegal, 1992. I think what can help us is better management and selfless stewards. Because at the time, the managers took their eye off the ball, just thinking about Abedi, because he was our supremo, of course. The Nigerians will remember him forever. The supremo. Unfortunately, they couldn't go with us to the final. And the reason I'm talking about the administrators is that camp was divided between the Kumasi and Accra. And that didn't help at all. They made certain decisions that were not cool at all. Tony Bafo being given the captain's band instead of Anthony Yeboah. When Yeboah went in the pecking order, Anthony Bafo was nowhere near the captaincy. That was a problem. Those kind of decisions don't help us at all. So everything went except that the managers took their ball off and they took decisions that divided the front of the players. Going forward, that should be an area we should never go again, that try to divide the front. And it did happen recently, even in the last year. Remember, what's his name? Jordan being stripped of his captaincy for Kudus?
Yeah, exactly.
That was also another poor decision. So going forward, please, anything that could potentially land Ghana into trouble, the decision making, even with our World Cup coming up, the decision making, make sure the playing body are totally unified. Any decision that will cause any slight division in the playing body will not have Ghana at all. Not just for football, for all the other disciplines. But since we're talking football, that's what I got to say.
Very well. Attoh, very, very grateful to you. Daniel, let's come to you as well.
Thank you very much.
Daniel, yeah.
So, Nat, for me, it's about infrastructure and the welfare of these athletes. It's very important. It's a shame that we are 69 years old today as a country. I think boxing deserves better than we have offered them in terms of infrastructure. Yes, I know that in the last few years we have done the Bukum Sport Arena, but for everything this sport has done for us, I believe that they deserve a better arena, a better structure for what is supposedly one of our competitive advantage. I think boxing has the ability and potential to do great things if we invest a lot more in boxing. Even athletics, look, I don't think we have a state-of-the-art athletics tracks in this country, and that's a shame for everything that we say we are. We claim that we are a sporting country, but every time we have demonstrated that we are just a football country. The sports is beyond or goes beyond football, and even the sport, the football that we say we have invested so much in. Look at the level of decay that our various stadiums are in. I don't think that anyone who's had the opportunity to travel outside of this country and witness an Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, Egypt, Ivory Coast, will compare any of their stadiums to our stadium. Our stadiums are a pale shadow of themselves. We don't have a modern stadium that we play football in. And the welfare of these players, look at how much we pay Premier League players in this country. In a country that is almost 70 years, our best players go to countries like Tanzania to ply their trade. They go to some of the weirdest countries that you have heard of to play their football. We need to get the infrastructure right. We need to get the welfare of these players right. We need to pay them well. And because the sporting disciplines or the sport in general has the potential to take a lot of the youth out of poverty. It has the potential to take a lot of the youth out of the street and keep them away from trouble. So for me, I think it's a big day for reflection on what we could do for sport. I heard President Mahama speak at the independence, during his independence speech, and talked about the fact that he believed in the youth and that he was with the youth. I think that sport is one area that we have to look at. It has the potential of making millionaires out of these people. The talent is abundant in this country. And Carl mentioned that when we were a smaller country in terms of population, we did better with our sport. I think with a bigger population of more than 30 million people, we would have people to participate and represent us in every sporting discipline that we invest in. And so for me, that's the key takeaway, Nat.
Very well. Daniel, we're very, very grateful to you for contributing to this part of the conversation. Thank you so much. Daniel Odro there, also getting support from Echo Asthma, and of course, Carl Tufo from the United States of America for this first part of the Joy Sports Link here on Joy 99.7 FM. For the second part of the show, we're going to bring you back a certain key conversation that I had some months ago with the seasoned and celebrated Magnus Rex Tankwa. He is an international sports consultant who has played very key roles in terms of giving technical advice and formulating a lot of the sports policies that helped us to make some of the biggest achievements, within a 20-year period, in our history. And of course, when I had the sit down with him, he got me into some of these things, some of the kinds of relationships that he grew, and some of the things that he brought up back in the time that helped us to get where we were. And of course, some years ago as well, he got the opportunity to lead the local organizing committee for Ghana's Africa Cup of Nations in the year 2008. After that, subsequent to that as well, we saw what happened with the Africa Hockey Cup for Nations. All of these are major events in our history. So we'll go back to a certain part of that conversation that we had, especially as we reflect on 69 years of our post-independence life as a nation and what we've been able to do in our sporting sector. Thank you, sir, and congratulations. We all aspire to looking this good at age 70 plus. Yeah, amazing. So, what are the rules when you get to this stage of life, especially when it comes to wellness?
It's the normal exercise.
Okay.
And at 70, it's not the major ones. Walk is a very good thing. Walk at dawn or just evening before you turn in. And then a lot of water.
Don't eat just anything?
The drain comes in a funny way.
Okay.
Because you are not as strong before.
Okay.
Yeah, so you take your time, bottled water. So almost everywhere you should have water.
Very well.
Yeah. Apart from that, it's the Lord himself who keeps you. Interesting.
And of course, we would like to say congratulations to Mfantsipim. This is one of the most difficult parts of this conversation where, we'd have to congratulate. But at St. Augustine's, we're gentlemen and we like to speak the truth, so Mfantsipim have done well, We had to help them to celebrate their 150th, which is next year. Yeah, so congratulations ahead of that as well. And the 13th African Games, first of all, you are the brain behind it. You secured that bid.
Yeah, I did based on the... In fact, I started working on it over a number of years, over past ministers and all, because I thought you can't do football every time. You understand? Football Cup of Nations, when there are more talent in almost every discipline. So then, why don't we do the Africa Games? That was the transfer from Supreme Council for Sports in Africa. They were handling that away from football into that. But then there were things that we should have done in the very beginning. We should have done a lot more regional championships. You understand? Because it's the talent you want to be able to represent the nation in that. So we should have gone into schools and colleges to run that line, and it was part of the blueprint. Because I always believe that you just don't go for the events without the antecedents. And the antecedent means that you have to prepare for it. Because you can't just host it and virtually last. Everybody will see that you did not plan well. So we needed to do schools and colleges sports for a certain number of years to the games. If you had done that, the story would have been different. 2, yes, Legon and Boteman close. Okay, some are subject to investigation, so I wouldn't want to go there. To go there means that you are supposed to know things before. Yeah. But there was a plan that we're going to do a cost-effective thing. That's why we opted for the Legon campus.
And other satellite facilities.
Yeah, close by.
Close by, okay, great.
You understand? Even the access control thing, we had worked on all that. There was nothing that we were going to change because the students themselves, that's what they do. So they were without Porter's Lodge. Because the Porter's Lodge, the absence of Porter's Lodge means that you have access to your card right through to your room and back. You don't need Porter's there. The normal one, that the Porter's there, you go and pick your key and all. So it was a whole change. But then history always plays tricks on human beings. Because if you don't plan well, history treats you in such a way that you have the problems that you have. And I always believe that we should have done a lot of schools and colleges competitions before the Africa Games with new talents. Because if you go back and you would have talked to a lot of countries that came, there were a lot of students that came. They were not their national stars.
Okay. You are proposing a bit of a new model for the African Games. But of course, what we are also aspiring to is that it should sit well within the space of the major multi-sporting events, the Commonwealth Games, the Olympic Games and all that. This is 54 nations we're talking about here. Yeah. And so if we're having a games event, we have to plan well and execute well. But here's the case where, first of all, our date, the agreement on a date also became problematic, such that it was close to the World Championships. And of course, because of prize money and all that, some of the key African athletes opted out of the African Games.
It's like it's a chess game, or you fit things. We didn't fit it well, so there's no excuse. We didn't fit the puzzle well. Yeah, we didn't fit the puzzle well, because you ran into a major international one level than the Ghana Games to West Africa Games, or towards West Africa, from West Africa to West Africa, from Africa towards Pan-African or a certain grouping before then the West Siege, so that you peak towards the finality of the Olympic Games. You get it? So you don't just plan. It's a sequencing. So the stars that you get out of this one, they qualify for this. The one here qualify for this till you get to the Olympic Games. So if you miss the timing, you don't follow it through. You wait till the next cycle, then to organize. You get the argument I'm making? It's a sequencing thing with sports, because it's like you play the league, then you go to AFCON. You understand? Because you finish the league and you are in a certain state. You understand? So you virtually qualify for that one. Then from that one, if it's a World Cup, you are in a certain state, you virtually qualify for that. That is the missing link in our planning. We don't sequence it. If you sequence it, you see that whoever comes out is prepared for the next event. You understand? But apart from that, it's like a normal event. Sports is like a normal event, entertainment, whatever. The thinking is not different. So it's how you plan it and the deliverables that you want. If you don't take the deliverables and measure and see where you got it wrong, and then the next one, you are going a step up and see what you want, and then we are not planning at all. And for me, that is the bane of Ghana and Africa sports. Because you see that some of the countries, they will not do any of the other disciplines. They will go in for about 4 disciplines. And before they come, they would have traveled all over the world to fit themselves that when they come on the African stage, because of the prominence they're giving to the Africa Games, they perform well. But we do everything local. And you do everything local, you should expect local results.
I see. We had an event which grew over the days. I remember that at a certain point there was the gates were opened, people could go in, and I'm talking about the African Games here. Yeah, and Legon became the place, and people took their kids there. Loads and loads of massive crowds to watch the games, and then after that, we're done. Today, the president has instituted he has ordered that the Attorney General looks into our expenditure and all of that. I mean, how do you feel about it without necessarily wanting to go directly into a lot of the...
For me, it's a sad thing. It's as if that's how we've seen sports. You understand? After every major event, then there's a scandal.
Brazil,
So it means that what you are telling the politicians is that we don't do it for the sports, we do it for something else. And once they also get that mentality, then the checks will always be cyclical. Every time after, then there will be another, and I know for sure, market. The next one, there will be about the same investigations. It means we are not doing something right. And then we're also not getting almost every district and region involved. You understand? When we were growing up, there's this thing they always tell us, that if you want dribblers, go to the Western region. You know why? Because of the flair of the language and things. And it shows in the way they play, and it shows in all the stars. And that when the old man gives you a nation, a state, he gives you everything. But not all of them in one region or one state. So we cannot do any national thing without doing a district thing and a regional thing to pick the talents for the national. You can't just sit in Accra and organize something and call it national without going to every district and going to every region. No. He has a good reason for putting us in the size of Ghana. That everybody has a role in the ultimate delivery of how the Ghana nation should be like. So, if you have any discipline, granted you cannot do all the 14, 15, whatever the number of regions is. You should be given a certain minimum, which should be about 60 to 70% of the regions. Without that, it should not be a national association. Because you can't just sit in Accra and call it a national association. When the money that you get to organize is for the whole nation of the map of Ghana. So you are denying some people access to that money for just a group who are just in Accra. No. So there should be some conditions that anything that is national, at least 60% of the regions should be there. You understand? Because there are really talents everywhere. You have no idea. If you go around, somebody will do tutors. I don't want to mention some of the players, but they came into prominence by just a feature. You understand? Mahama Enlai, you ever heard the name?
Briefly.
He can shoot from a distance and you will miss the goal.
What we saw of Mohamed Gago in the mid-90s, similar stuff, right?
Even more than that.
Even more.
Because then they are improved.
Yeah.
You understand? I mean, this corner to go thing was easy for football around that time. The corner to go.
Yeah.
Because the person has practiced it for years. That as soon as you kick and curl, and sometimes they even measure to the last person on the last post. not the shutter post, because they gauge between the posts that if you park here thinking that is where, then they're able to send it right to the end post. That's how football is, the beauty of it. That's why we're filling stadia. And I remember when I was young, Jendu, the majority of the people who watch Kumasi here, some even bet their cars and then lose the cars and then hand over the car papers and everything to the person who has won the bet.
In football matches?
Yeah, in football matches.
Yeah, my late father did same some time back, but he gracefully
gave it to a person.
Gave it back to the person. Yeah.
Oh,
it was Accra Hearts of Oak versus Great Olympics, and I remember. My late father was a director of Accra Hearts of Oak. Yeah. He was the club's doctor as well during Coach Ade's time, and he tells us this story of how he was in Somanya and they were having a conversation ahead of a game between Hearts and Olympics, and there was an Olympics fan who swore that Olympics were going to beat Hearts by 2-0 or something. And eventually, Hearts of Oak won the game by either a 0-0 or 3-2 or something interesting like that. And
gentleman, he brought everything.
Yeah.
And it's actually at the stadium. You see it. Especially when it's Wise, Hazakes, and Kotoko. Then the Lebanese. As soon as the final scores, they bring the car papers and everything to you because they betted on a car. But that is how football has changed. And I want to believe that if you put in extra effort, we put in a lot more planning. And the fact that every region is important. It's important to the extent that the kind of structures of the people in the region give them the position that they can play in a team. Because every region has a structure of a person. So the old players, the old coaches, they look for a certain structure and they will say, go here. And I remember Enlai for one, the old times, or George Alassane, or Peter Lamte.
The late Peter Lamte.
Yeah, the late, yeah.
Recently passed.
Yeah, recently, yeah.
God bless his soul.
Yeah. So
amazing.
We need to not go back to the past, no, but bring a lot more planning, a lot more science into it, and try and go back to the regions. What is special about them? We need to study that. We haven't done that yet.
So in Northern Ghana, for instance, one of the things I noticed was that many people in Northern Ghana, by build and by natural physique, are primed more towards contact sports that require a lot of extra physical activity. Boxing, for instance. Then what is required, like you said, is that you have a structure where there are facilities, there are technical people to train, and then based on that, a competitive structure can be built.
Definitely.
It was interesting that the Hockey Cup for Nations had come in just at the time when President Mills, of blessed memory, took over as president. And during his first State of the Nation address, I do remember that he mentioned it as a project, So before that was former President Kufuor, who opened the Africa Cup of Nations after you had done a lot of work as Chief Operating Officer.
That was a major thing that wanted to use to change the face of sports, one, and then football. In terms of merchandising, in terms of the commercial aspect of sports. And that was a time that, because I had been in sports, I knew all kinds of tricks that people do. So you remember we used the chip for the tickets, and the principle was that normally people go in and throw the ticket start over the wall, and then you come in with it as if you went out and you are coming back. So what I wanted was a chip in that's the condition for the ticket. A chip in the ticket that if you go in, it registered you that you've gone in. If you throw it over the wall, it registers you that you are still in the stadium, so you cannot come in again. You get it? So if you throw your ticket over the wall, when you are passing through the machine, it will reject you because you are still inside. So for me, I was being futuristic in trying to deal with some of the issues that normally happen, like the gate, one, like corporate boxes. Because we sold the corporate box for 208 at $150,000.
I see.
Yeah, that gives you the fridge, the washroom, the service from the hotels for the period of the tournament. And 150,000 was a lot, and we sold them all out. I can't say.
Amazing.
Because I thought the kind of feature that we built around the 208, there's nothing you can't do.
But I'm very sure that, you know, winning the tournament by the Black Stars could have capped all that for you. But it couldn't happen. We settled for third.
It's unfortunate. That was the time that I realized that there are too many things that also go on in football.
Too many things like what?
Too many things that go on in football.
Yeah.
In as much as quite a number of the people wanted Ghana to win, for the expense that we had incurred and all the innovations that we had. You know, the 10 itself had politics around in terms of calculations and all kinds of things that were going on. And they were major determinants of some of the issues that happened.
All right. Thank you all so much for being a part of the show today. The first part, we talked about the great moments, the big achievements, and the close shaves that we've had in our history and what you remember most and how we can correct, especially the very close shaves when we get the opportunity in the future. We've also been listening to a conversation I had earlier with Magnus Rex Dankwa. Thank you all so much for watching the show and being a part of it. And we're glad to everybody who contributed to the show with messages and all of that. Of course, by the good grace of God, we'll be back next weekend with another very big one. And you, of course, would like to say a very big happy birthday. This is the birthday weekend of our beloved First Lady, Lordina Mahama, who's also the founder of the Lordina Foundation, focusing on maternal health, children's health, and also education and many other areas of social development. Your Excellency, Lordina Mahama, we say happy birthday to you, and we love you so much. All right, so that's it for the show. And you do know that after this, we're going on ground to have that showbiz roundtable conversation, the very first part of it for this series. And we're going to be doing a lot in terms of focus of, the rehashing agenda of the arts, culture and entertainment industry in our country. We'll be back next weekend with another one. And to our friends in Holy Child School, we say congratulations to them as well as they mark the highest point of their 80th anniversary celebration. Next weekend, it will be that of St. Augustine's College. All right. My name is Nathaniel Attoh, and I have love for sport.